I know this is going to be a fantastic conversation that everyone's been looking forward to. We've been talking so much about nuclear, so we are so lucky to have Leigh Curyer, the CEO of NexGen, here to talk about how to really unleash the potential for nuclear. And Leigh, so pleased you could be here. We are lucky to have you here because you are a pioneer in the industry. You started when a lot of folks told you that you shouldn't, that it was crazy, and look where we are now. So talk to me a little bit about what's happening in the uranium market and how you see the state of play right now.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I've been in the industry since 2002, going on 23 years, and I've never witnessed until, I would say, the last 12 months, such universal global support for nuclear energy. And the pleasing factor, having been in the industry, is that the nuclear energy policy is based on scientific fact, as opposed to some of the false ideologies that generated in the 1970s. So it's the right decision for the planet. It's the most cost-effective, reliable source of energy and carbon-free, which is incredibly important for our future generations.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's real this time?
I do.
Because we've had starts before. It's been a frustration for some who are, which is, I imagine, why people tried to talk you out of your efforts.
Yes, there has been some false starts, no doubt about it. But I think with the European Union having done a very extensive study with MIT over a number of years, proving the scientific fact, you're seeing world economies in the US, like the US, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, all adopting nuclear energy as a core foundation of their energy mix. The momentum's the strongest it's ever been, and the demand for power is so critically important for the average standard of living worldwide, and safe, reliable power is absolutely core to the average standard of living and trying to elevate it. So it's very, very exciting. So
talk to us a little bit about NexGen and specifically about Rook I. What sets it apart?
Yes, we are developing what is the world's most technically elite and environmentally elite mine. And when in production, we'll be approximately 20% of the world's uranium supply. And to put that in a little bit of context, Saudi Arabia produced 9% of the world's oil. And so NexGen will be producing 20% of the world's supply from a technically elite and environmentally elite mining setting, and located in Saskatchewan, Canada, which is consistently ranked as the world's top 1 or 2 jurisdictions to develop and operate a resources project.
So one of the things that's come up over and over at this conference is the demand. Everyone wants it yesterday. It's racing ahead of what typically are capital-intensive, longer projects. And yet, through hyperscalers and some of the reshoring we're seeing, the demand is just off the charts. There's a bit of a mismatch and now a sort of race to try to catch up. What do we need to understand about readiness? Do you see this as a strategic advantage you have? Because these are long projects.
Yeah, Maggie, it is. It's developing a lot faster than we had anticipated. The hyperscalers are coming in, buying power in the future at a much higher price than what we see today. They have a demand for it to be carbon-free energy, and nuclear is the source for that. The industry is lagging on the supply side on the nuclear fuel. Look, the US consume 50 million pounds per annum of uranium per annum, yet they produce less than 1. And the cost structure of those mines in the US require prices for uranium far higher than what we have today. And so the US's ability to source the uranium domestically is very, very limited. But we're in Canada, a very friendly neighbour, and it'll be our absolute pleasure to help service the US market. And to put 20 million or 20% into context, we'll produce the volume of uranium annually that would power 46 million homes in the US, and that's the equivalent of the 5 most populous states in the US. It's very large scale.
That's extraordinary. Why are you able to, you mentioned before, you're technologically advanced, environmentally advanced. What do you mean by that? Like, why are you different and you're comparing yourself to legacy who won't be able to scale up as quickly? What's the difference?
Yeah, look, when we went over the other side of the Athabasca Basin, which hosts, the world's largest, highest grade uranium deposits, it was seen as, well, you couldn't find uranium over there. Not only did we find the world's largest, highest grade deposit over 100 million pounds, it also exists in an elite technical setting of very competent rock, very clean metallurgy. So when you get the ore to surface, it's actually a very benign environmental consequence, which is unlike the other mines that currently exist. They manage those extremely well, but they come at a very high cost, whereas we don't have that. And then also we designed a number of metrics into it to ensure, 3 to 5 years after operations, you'll be hard pressed to know there was ever a mine actually in the area. And that's a function of, we want to be the best economically, environmentally, and socially. And we've incorporated that into our design, so we reclimate the mine as we operate, and it's a very, very small footprint as well. So it's with that comes extra challenge. We have sought that challenge because we're just not, modelling ourselves on economic success. It's social and environmental as well, and we see it as a great responsibility. And look, I'm just one member of an incredible team of highly dedicated and accountable team members who have signed up for this.
It's extraordinary because you just mentioned that everyone told you it wasn't there, that it couldn't be done. Did you, from the beginning, have the idea that not only am I going to go, this is a real sort of landman type stuff, not only am I going to go try to drill and get it out of there, but what made you build that in before the market was there?
Yeah,
that readiness, that ability to be environmentally, get all those pieces together.
Yes, in the late 2000s, I was in private equity. I was heading up a nuclear investment platform for one of the world's largest private equity funds. And I'm very fact and data driven, and just researched, spoke to a lot of people, and it just never made sense to me why, you've got some producing mines on the eastern side of the basin, and yet there was none on the southwestern. And I took the simple view, having spoken to a lot of geologists, that the geology was the same. And then I guess the luck, if you'd like to call it, is when we discovered it. It was on the 21st drill hole on the property of a 200,000 hectare property, and you can miss these deposits by as little as a metre. But we just ran a process of mitigating risk and refining targets based on scientific fact as opposed to general consensus. And I've got a personal view, if it's so obvious, someone else has already done it. So I and the team personally looked for a property which had no drill holes on it, and just were open as to what could be. And once we found this incredible resource, we deliberately said, right, okay, that's a great resource, but we're going to judge ourselves on how we optimise that resource, not just sit on it and wait for a market. And I'm really glad we did. And as I said, I'm just one member of an incredible team that have been working diligently on this since 2011. And we are now on the cusp of construction, which will be 4 years, and then producing 20% of the world's uranium. So it has been a long journey, and we haven't wasted one single day. And that is how long these things take. Uranium mines that are material worldwide do take time, but I'm glad we did the work when the market or the appetite for uranium was low.
Right.
But we're very confident in the outlook, and we realise that the world needs energy, nuclear energy, which is carbon free, and now the policies have caught up.
Well, let's talk about that, because it's an interesting time. If you're ready and we're about to hit warp speed, we've got both the Canadian and the US government in different ways talking about accelerating these projects. How do you see that changing the industry? What will it mean for you, and what does it mean on time frame?
Yeah, I'm glad we've done all that work over the last decade. That is for sure.
A good lesson in that.
Really, really good. And but I think what you'll see is a huge increase in exploration, particularly in Canada, the US, and Australia. We just saw Niger have nationalised their mines and basically taken it off the French, who were very reliant on those mines to service their fleet. France is 80% powered by nuclear energy. And so I think in solid locations jurisdictionally, like US, Canada, and Australia, you are going to see a very huge uptick in exploration. We're already working on scenarios where we increase our production to meet this demand, because you're quite right, Maggie, there will be a gap in the supply, and that will result in far higher prices for U3O8 uranium.
So you look at this from all aspects, which I think is interesting, because we tend to talk about it from the commodity, can this fill the need? But we're getting a little bit into the management and what it takes to actually run a nuclear company, which I think is really important. So a couple of the other things that can be obstacles, but if done right, can speed readiness. Partnerships with local communities. I know you've thought a lot about that, and you've been doing some interesting things with contracting, I understand. Can you talk to us about that and what's changing?
Sure, and look, in Canada, it has had a bit of a checkered history with companies and local communities collaborating. I introduced myself to the community in 2011 and said, look, just judge NexGen on its actions. And we are now recognised as having the most productive, genuine collaboration with First Nation communities anywhere in Canada. In fact, we've been approached by other communities to ask us to give a hand with the companies they're dealing with. And it's all purely based on respect. People said, what is your secret sauce? And it's purely respect. And so there was an opportunity to do it differently than what had been in the past. And that's a function of our elite standards culture, and we've implemented that. With respect to contracting, again, we've looked at the facts and looked at the environment and the universe of nuclear demand, and we have then looked at our project and its strengths around very high certainty around production and low cost, and we are going to optimise the return on each of those pounds. And so what we are offering utilities that hasn't been delivered in the past is far higher security of supply coming from Canada and from a very technically sound source, and shorter duration of contracts as opposed to locking in over like a decade. And what that delivers for us is ensuring that we realise the true market price at the time of delivery of that fuel. And for utilities, we offer very high reliability, but not necessarily the huge commitment over 10 years. And so I think it works best for both us as a producer and also the utilities.
Yeah, because when there's change, there's often, people aren't used to it, it's disruption. And it can seem like, wait a minute, I can't fix my price. But you're saying the trade-off is that you get a lot more reliability. And the time span matters, because there are some players in this, as we've discussed throughout the market, that are not used to making those massive decade-long commitments and may not be sure they need to. So there's more flexibility built in.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I guess some of the current producers have said, well, that's different to what we've done in the past. But the environment's changed. And we recognise that, and we're setting ourselves to reflect that demand and that, the structure of the demand, to make sure that we're offering high reliability, but not necessarily locking in for decade commitments as we go. And we've already signed offtake arrangements at industry-leading prices, with industry-leading flexibility for both the producer and the utility. So the market is moving and it's changing. And we are at the forefront of it.
Yeah. I think we've learned in other areas that boom bust don't really work for anyone.
No.
And so if you can even that out, and reliability is everything right now. How do you see NexGen's growth potential? Because I know there's some exciting developments coming in. It's not just around Rook I. What can you tell us?
Yes, and we discovered the project, as I said, on the 21st drill hole ever drilled on a 200,000 hectares. And last year we relaunched the exploration campaign as we're approaching construction, and we've hit another discovery. And it's only 3.5 kilometres away, so it'll be developed out of the same production and shaft and mill, obviously subject to an additional approval. And that's where we're looking at scenarios where we're maybe going to even increase the volume of production per annum in the 2030s to meet this huge demand that's out there and limited supply. So I never thought we were that good that we found the one and only deposit straight up. There's clearly more mineralisation on our property, and it remains to be discovered.
That's amazing. I hope Taylor Sheridan is not watching this, because this does sound like it's ripped straight out of Landman with this discovery. Right?
I wonder who would play me.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. You may have a say in that. Yeah. But it is really interesting to hear that this is a very changing environment. I mean, we started out the day talking about the fact that we may need to rethink the way we've done things before. What would your message be to leaders who are looking for power supply, who need to meet the needs, but have not played in nuclear before, and this may be new to them? What's your message?
Yeah, it's the same as the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. He's recognised the need to accelerate energy projects in Canada, and he is specifically targeting reducing the red tape at the federal level. That is the aspect that takes the longest time. And with respect to the regulatory agencies, they need additional resourcing in order to ensure that the rigorous standards that exist in the US, Canada and Australia are met and then maintained. And it's incredibly positive what Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, is doing in terms of really deploying a focus on the regulatory aspect to expedite it, but not reduce those very high standards that exist. And the same applies in the US and Australia as well. And that is the challenge for governments, but it's the single most factor that can be deployed to accelerate and meet this energy demand that's evolving.
So interesting to think about even things like staffing at those levels being something that needs to be considered. We've got a few questions. Let's see. We always get questions, so many good ones. We always get questions about thoughts on small modular reactors, as well as reactors with non-uranium fuel.
Yeah, look, the small modular reactors are incredible development on top of what is already a huge demand scenario. The upside of the small modular reactors can be deployed in remote areas, and they're lower capital and lower cost. So that is on top of all the other demand that is unfolding at the commercial level. And it was just this week, a new reactor has been announced for New York.
That's one of the questions, yeah. Do you think that seems feasible?
Oh, absolutely I do. It's feasible and absolutely necessary, because the price of power does affect everyone very economically, and populations need efficient, low-cost power to prosper. And New York recognises that. Illinois has recognised that with the reopening of reactors that were idle. It's unfolding a lot faster than I had anticipated, that's for sure.
Fantastic. Leigh, thank you so much. Exciting times to be in the industry. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Maggie. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone.